Before we start, I just want to say thank you for coming and welcome. And there's only one door here, so if there's a fire, go out that door. I don't think there will be. Before we start, some of you in the room are pregnant, some of you may have been in the past, and some of you work in birth and stuff like that, but most of you have some experience either because it's impending or it's happened at birth. And I just want to ask, if we lived in a universe where we had the best possible version of your life, what word would you describe that you want to feel about the birth that's coming to you or the birth that you've already had? Right, reality doesn't come into it here. We're in a world of infinite variations. So if you could think of that word, what would be the best possible description, if you like, of a birth that you've either had or are going to have? Feel free to just...
Pain-free, that's the one.
Okay. Joyful.
Orgasm.
Okay. Any more? Okay. So I think that some of us find it quite difficult to even come up with the idea that birth can be a positive experience. We're bombarded with all of this negativity, and so that's why you're here, partly. But I think it's just useful to just understand that there are a lot of possibilities. We talked about orgasm already. I'm just going to dial it back again. I'm going to jump around a little bit today. Some of you know me, but I just want to say who I am and why I'm standing here in front of you today. My name's Eleanor Hayes. You might have guessed because my name's on the book, and you're here hopefully because of that. And my journey in birth has been quite an interesting one. And so I have to rewind back to the beginning of that, which goes back to 2009 when I was pregnant with my first child. And I had lots of really great intentions about what that would be and what it would be like. And I did NCT courses, and I also did a hypnobirthing course, and I read a lot of very inspiring books, including Ina May Gaskin, Guide to Childbirth, which is a really, really interesting book. And I had kind of quite clear ideas, and in fact, after our hypnobirthing course, I think it was Kieran, my husband, who's sitting at the back, who actually said, I think we should have a home birth, I think it would be brilliant. And I kind of went, oh my God, and then we thought, yeah, actually this could be amazing. So we got the pool, and we had the plan for the home birth and everything. And I suppose alarm bells should have rung for me a little bit when we were in the hypnobirthing course and they were doing an exercise where you had to imagine like that your hand was raising up in the air, and I was kind of going like this, and everyone had their hands up, and I was like, and it kind of wasn't really resonating with me, but I was like, no, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, I hypnobirth in the water and the home, it's going to be wonderful, and blah, blah, blah. And actually, what happened was that I went into labour early on a Saturday morning, about 4:45 in the morning, and we thought, wow, we're going to meet our baby today, it's going to be really amazing, and I spent all day in the fantasy of what my labour was going to be like, and we went to Co-op and bought cheese, and I had a contraction in the cheese aisle, and I would make bread, and so I was like kneading bread. What the fuck was I doing kneading bread in labour? I mean, honestly. So this happened all day, and the contractions were like quite full on, and by kind of, I don't know, midnight or something, we thought, yeah, things are really getting going. We'll call the midwife. The midwife came in, and I said, she examined me, and I said, whatever you do, if I'm 1 centimetre dilated, don't tell me, just lie, because that would be really devastating. And she said, I'm terribly sorry, you're only 1 centimetre dilated, which was pretty devastating. And that was on Saturday, and then labour carried on Sunday. And then on Monday, it was still going, and I was still at home, and I was still, midwives wouldn't stay because I was still not dilated, and it was going on and going on. And in the end, fast forward to Tuesday, finally, there was a little concern over the baby, and we decided to transfer into hospital. And bearing in mind, I spent 3 days just with a TENS machine, which is pretty fucking amazing, in full-on labour. And then when I got to the hospital, as is often the case, your fantasy of a really beautiful natural birth somewhat goes out the window, and the caesarean went in my mouth and didn't really come out again for about 8 hours. And I had a whole load of interventions, and while I did avoid a caesarean, I had a huge number of things. And the thing that really stuck in my mind from that experience was actually when I had been, it was in the afternoon I think, and I had been on the gas and air for a number of hours, and I hadn't had any sleep for 3 days and I hadn't had any food, and I was actually hallucinating. And hey Lucy, and then what happened was a decision was made. I don't know if it was by me. I can ask Kieran about it later because he's probably got a slightly clearer memory of it. But I decided that I was going to have an epidural, and I didn't really know what an epidural was, but I knew that by this point it was going to make everything better. And they had this piece of paper, and they kind of said, here's the consent form, and they handed it to me, and I looked at it, and it was just like that, words on the page, all over the place. And I looked at it, and I thought, bloody hell, I don't know what I'm signing. I can't even make pen go to paper. And I remember looking at my husband, I don't know if you remember this moment, and I thought, I've got to get the message across. And I looked at him with my most intensive stare, and I said, I can't make this decision. You have to make it for me. Now, we haven't actually talked about this, but I don't know if you signed it or I did or what, but anyway, I did have the epidural, and fast forward, and I had my baby and everything else. But in fact, actually, it was really quite a traumatic experience overall, and I don't mean to scaremonger you, that's not the point of this talk. But to show that actually, when I looked back, one of the things that I found most traumatic about that experience was having to make a decision about something that I, A, was not in a position to make because I was frankly off my face on gas and air and hallucinating with sleep deprivation and pain. But also I didn't actually really know anything about it. I didn't really know what an epidural was. I didn't really know what you did or what happened to you or how long it lasted or what it meant. I just knew that it meant it would take the pain away. So I was coming from a place of absolute ignorance when making that decision. And then fast forward a couple of years, and I was pregnant again for some reason. I think it was because I really hated my job at the time, and I was like, right, okay, let's get out of this. It was just at the time when the banks crashed, and I had to make like 3/4 of my team redundant, and it was awful. I was like, yeah, it's time to have a baby. And I kind of got pregnant, and all those feelings that I'd suppressed about my previous birth came back, and I thought, oh my God, how the fuck am I going to do this again? The swearing is coming out again now. And I actually thought I have to do this differently. And so I actually, I did some psychotherapy. I had a course of psychotherapy. And it was really insightful because what came of that was the understanding and realisation about the bits that were traumatic for me in my birth. And actually that whole 3 days at home, whilst it was long and hard, wasn't the traumatic bit. And the transferring to hospital wasn't the traumatic bit. The traumatic bit was signing a consent form that I didn't know, and then feeling completely disconnected from my body because I was essentially paralysed from the boobs down for the rest of the labour, and they ended up handing me this baby. And I found that really, really difficult to reconcile. And I thought, right, this second birth, I've got to do this differently. I've seen these bloody videos on YouTube. There's an orgasm in there somewhere for somebody. It's got to be different, right? It's got to be different. So I did everything I possibly could different, and I did the psychotherapy, and my sister handed me a copy of New Active Birth by Janet Velasquez, which is a great book, and I highly recommend that you go and find it. And it talked about active birth, which is something I'll talk about another time. But it really changed the way that I viewed how to prepare for birth and made me realise that the hypnobirthing wasn't enough for me personally, and I needed something different. And I then found an active birth class in my area, and I went, and it was a 6-week course, and I loved it so much I did it twice because I just loved it that much. And I really wanted to reinforce what it was teaching. It really helped me change my mindset. It gave me loads of practical skills for birth. And I read every book. I didn't just read the beautiful, inspiring home water birth books. I read all the books. I did all the research. I asked all the questions in the consultants' appointments because I was high risk by this time, second time round. And I went into that room on the second time, and my daughter was late. Really late, so I was being pressured into having an induction, which I really didn't want, and we'd agreed to go in, but I went into the hospital, and I'd reconciled with not having a home birth, and the thing is, in that room, I had an iron hard confidence in what I was going to achieve. I was going to have a fucking awesome birth, And nobody was going to stop me. And I remember Kieran, bless him, said to me the last thing before we went, he said, "Be nice." Do you remember saying that? He said, "Be nice." Because I do have a habit of coming across a bit like aggressively, and it's not, I'm just excited. But sometimes, like, if you're very gentle, I can be a bit full on, so that's fine, you get used to me. And so I was really, really nice, but there was no way I was going to consent to anything that I hadn't been fully explained to me. And I went in the room and I said, right, before we start, I want the anaesthetist to come and have a meeting with me and tell me what an epidural is and explain exactly what he's going to do and all the risks and everything, because just in case I want one, I want to know what the fuck I'm getting myself in for. And I had a very detailed birth plan that was very, very comprehensive, and they were very respectful, and every person read the whole thing, and there were things I absolutely knew that I wanted and absolutely knew that I didn't want. And I was really, really adamant, and I was pushed to have a drip, and my water's broken, and my contractions were starting, and I was being pushed to have a drip, and I was like, but my contractions are starting, I'm in labour, and it wasn't enough for them. And actually, I was so sure that they were not doing that. I did everything I could possibly think of to kind of get them away, and in the end, actually, just the contractions did ramp up, and the midwife came and said, "Oh, I'm a bit more convinced by your contractions." So I'm bloody convinced. And it ramped up very, very quickly after that, very, very quickly. And I remember looking at the clock at about 9:30 and thinking, I need to stand up. I've been on this ball all this time, and I need to actually move position. And I stood up. And I had what I now know is the transition period of labour, which you'll learn about if you come to my workshop. And I had this kind of crazy contraction, and I felt like I needed to push. And remember, the first time I had an epidural, so I didn't really know what to expect in the actual birthing part of labour. I didn't know what it was going to feel like. And I remember getting out of contraction, and I handed the gas and air, my midwife, character, sorry, that's okay. I handed the gas and air nozzle to the midwife, and I said, "I think you should take the gas and air. I think I'm hallucinating. I think I felt like I needed to push." And she was wonderful. She gently pushed it back and said, "No, you might just want to hang on to that. You might be ready to push." And I said, "Don't be silly." And I looked at the clock and I said, "I've got another 85 hours of this." So 85 hours is how long my first labour was, which is exactly a week and a half, 3.5 days. Long. And I was like, I'd only been going for a few hours. And actually I did need to push, and actually my baby came out very quickly, and I had a completely natural delivery, and I had a completely awesome birth in 6 hours and 5 minutes start to finish. It was completely amazing. And what was wonderful was the fact that I went through that whole experience with iron hard confidence about what I was doing and what my options were and what my choices were and what I was happy to compromise on and what that I was absolutely not going to compromise on. And I was nice, I think. It was nice, wasn't it? It was good. Sorry? Firm. But I did swear a lot, and I may have said the C word a few times. But that's all right. I've been told by a midwife at the front that swearing's okay, so that's good. But I had a completely amazing, awesome birth. And if you know me, you'll hear me say that word awesome a lot and say awesome birth a lot, and you might think, oh, bloody hell, can't have an awesome birth. Now, orgasm birth and awesome birth are completely different. Awesome actually means something to be in awe of, and that it might be something you fear, but still, it's amazing. And I think it totally nails how I feel about birth, because it can be the most amazing experience of your life. And for me, that second birth changed my life that day. It healed me from my first birth, which I found very difficult and traumatic, but it opened my eyes to the power of the human body and the power of mothers and womanhood, and I'll probably start crying in a minute, and that's fine. I've given myself permission to cry freely, so if tears come, don't be embarrassed, because I'm not. And actually, it was really amazing. And do you know what? I gave up my job and became an active birth teacher to spread the word of active birth, and that's how I created Birth Sang about 6 months later, when I realised that that job I hated. There was no way I was fucking going back to it, and I needed something else to do that I felt passionately about, and I suddenly realised that this was what it was. So that was kind of back in 2012 and 13. And what has that got to do with anything that I'm talking about? And what's that got to do with my book, which is hiding down here at the front? So, back on track to what you came for. The pillars of birth education to me have evolved over the years that I've been teaching it in the way that I have trained with different people. And I first trained with Janet Velasquez, the person whose book I wrote, who most of you probably never heard of, but she was very, very famous in the 70s and 80s in really changing the way that we think about birth and the way that we prepare for it and enable mothers to get off the bed and all that kind of stuff. Again, come to my workshop and hear all about that. And for me, there's like 3 real pillars of antenatal education. And any antenatal class that you go to, I think, should cover these things. Whatever methodology you're using, hypnobirthing or active birth or something else, it all should include this. One is education. And that probably is obvious, because after all, you're going to a class. But it's surprising how people can not impart much information, and they can talk a lot and not actually give you useful education, and that you sometimes come out of the room feeling like you haven't really learned anything. The second one is understanding. So it's all very well for me to talk all about this, that and the other, but if you haven't got a bloody clue what I'm talking about, you're not really learning anything. And it's about putting things into context and understanding why you need the education and why you're teaching me this. Why are you teaching me to get up off the bed and stand up straight? Why are you teaching me what's going on with my hormones? If you don't understand why, then it's all completely meaningless. And so those things go really closely together. And then the third thing is practice. And actually you do need to practice, I think, for labour. I think it's wonderful if you can go into the birthing room and just follow your instincts and be wonderful and flowing and have an orgasm. Wonderful. But actually a lot of people, they find the reality of labour quite different than the fantasy. And a little bit of preparation goes a long way, and a lot of preparation can give you an awesome birth. So basically, why would you not kind of do a bit of preparation? And the thing that underpins all of the stuff that you're learning in the room that you're in when you're having your baby is choice and a perception of choice as well. Because in fact, we have quite an amazing system of birthing in this country where we have a midwife-led system. We're very lucky. And actually, we've got amazing guidelines and amazing policies that actually give women and men an amazing amount of choice in every aspect of their birth, from where they're birthing to how they birth, who is there up to a point. And I mean, you can't have like lots of people necessarily, but maybe you can if you're at home, you know, there's always choice. But sometimes I think we don't realise that, and sometimes we aren't, it's not obvious to us that that choice is available to us, and often we will walk into a room and not know there's any choice, and therefore won't make any choices because we won't realise those options are available to us. So that's what I mean about that perception of choice and knowing that it's there. In birth and in labour, you always have a choice. Now, there would be some times you'd be completely bloody stupid to ignore the advice that you're being given by a medical professional, but there's always a choice, and you always have the choice to say, no, I don't want that, thank you, bye, I'm off to birth my baby in the field and have an orgasm over here, or whatever, and that's absolutely your choice. But the thing is, this choice is meaningless if you're signing your life over to the devil, as it were, because in fact, and this is the key of what I'm saying, I suppose, is that we need to have that perception of choice, and we need to understand what the choice is, but we need to be making informed choices. And that's really, really important to me. And so, here's an example of understanding what I mean by informed choice and informed consent. So, could I have a volunteer who is going to discourse with me briefly? Go on then. Go on. I knew you were just itching to put your hand up. You can stay there if you like. If you want to come up, then you can come up too. Okay. So, you're Kaz, just so everyone knows. This is Kaz. I do know Kaz. And are you hungry?
I'm starving.
Great. Would you like an apple or a slice of cake?
Both.
Great. Okay. Could you choose one?
Probably the cake.
Okay, great. So, you've made a choice, and you've given consent, you're having cake.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Because you've eaten cake before and you've eaten apples,
Yeah.
and you know what you like, and you know that even though cake's a bit bad for you, you like it anyway. Fuck it. So that's kind of consent, and then we've got tacit consent. So then we've got tacit consent, where it's like, have some cake. I'm giving you cake now. There's the cake. And so she's kind of said, okay, I've accepted the cake, but there was like no choice in there at all, really. And then we've got, are you hungry?
Yeah.
Would you like an argy-bargy or an ujima flip? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to hurry you up now. You need to choose between an argy-bargy and a... Well, can you just choose? But you need to choose because we really need to get this in you. You need to eat it.
Which one would you have?
Can you just have? You need to choose the argy-bargy or the ujima flip. Which one are you going to have?
The first one.
Argy-bargy.
That's what.
Great. Okay.
Whatever.
Great. It's not really informed consent, is it? If you haven't got a fucking clue what an argy-bargy is or an ujima flip. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous. What the fuck are you signing up for? Who knows? And that is where my book comes in. So I did a really nice roundabout way of getting there. So this is why I've written this book, Helping Birth. And the whole point of this is to make sure that you know what an argy-bargy and an ujima flip is. Now, people who aren't familiar with birthing terms, I just made those up. Okay? They're not real words. Well, they might be, but they're nonsense words. They don't mean anything. It's an example. So, what have I got in this book that enables you to have informed consent? Every chapter covers a pain relief choice or an intervention that you might come across in the birthing room. And it's at all ends of the spectrum, from quite mild sort of things and stuff that maybe you could argue, is it really an intervention? So, for example, the TENS machine is one of the ones that's sort of like probably a bit of a grey area, but it's put in there anyway, and I'll be talking about that in a minute. All the way through to induction of labour, epidural, and caesareans, and also things that happen after birth as well. So, like, I've kind of tried to think of everything. If anything's missing, let me know. I'll put it in the second edition. It's fully researched and all up to date. And the way that I've written the chapter is based around an amazing acronym which people in the birthing world are really familiar with, and everyone else is like, what's that? And it's called the BRAIN acronym. So just put your hand up if you've heard of the BRAIN acronym. All the birth workers at the front row would like to
No, I'm a midwife and I don't know.
Okay.
You will when you hear it.
Do you not really?
Don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Awesome. So, the BRAIN acronym is, well, I don't need to look it up because I actually know it. So it stands for, and there are variations depending on where it comes from. And actually, I researched the origin of this acronym and discovered that there's no clear person who coined it. And it's used a lot in NCT classes. But it's really, really useful. It started appearing about 40 or 50 years ago, but no one really quite knows where it came from, so I felt okay to use it unattributed in my book. So, BRAIN stands for B, benefits. What are the benefits of this thing? What are the good things about it? How is it going to help me? R, risks. Okay, it's obvious. What are the risks of this thing? And, you know, how is it going to... You know, what are the side effects? What are the bad sides of it? Then we've got A, which stands for alternatives. It's going on my head, and Kaz is going, yeah, that's right. I do know. Stands for alternatives. So what are the alternatives for this? Is there something else I could do? What other choices have I got in this? Is it just the argy-bargy, or is there an ujima flip as well that I could be thinking about? So it's about looking at everything you could do in that situation. I stands for interventions, implications, although I is one that's under question because some people have a different acronym. Do you use instinct? Use instinct for that.
Yeah.
I like that, but I prefer implications. So I'm going to stick with that. It's printed as well, so too late. But also, well, instinct kind of feels like, okay, yeah, I can reflect back on myself. Actually, implications is really, really important to me because in actual fact, there's an awful lot of implications for pain relief options and interventions in labour, and a lot of them will then place you at a much higher risk of other things being necessary or other interventions being needed or required, and that's not necessity, but just the risks come up and the statistics kind of blah blah blah. So I think implications is a really, really important one to understand. For example, when I had that epidural, when I signed my life over to the epidural, I didn't know it was going to paralyse me for about 18 hours, and I was going to be completely paralysed till like midday the next day, and I was going to have a catheter, and that, you know, it had a lot of effects that I had no idea that had. So that's a really important one. And then N stands for nothing. What if we do nothing? What if we wait for an hour? What if we wait for 2 hours? What if we wait for 3 days? What happens if we do nothing? And then when you are faced in your labour with things perhaps not going in a way that you might have planned or expected, and you're thinking, oh shit, these contractions are way more painful than I thought, or oh, things are like happening that I hadn't really thought would happen, and perhaps the people around you are suggesting, well, maybe we might want to think about doing things in a different way, or maybe you might want to think about this. It gives you a framework to ask questions about what that thing is and get a really good understanding of what you're getting yourself into. However, when you've been in labour for 3 days and you're hallucinating on gas and air and sleep deprivation, and you can't even say your name and you're dribbling all over the place, that is not the time to be doing research about epidurals. Believe me, I know, been there, done that. And so this book is designed to give you all that information now, so you can read it, and you can, each chapter follows the brain structure, so it tells you what the thing is. So let's say, for example, TENS machine. It tells you what TENS machine is, it tells you how you use it and what happens when you use it, and then it goes through the brain acronym, so it says these are the benefits, these are the risks, these are the alternatives, these are the implications, and this is what happens if you do nothing. And it also then talks about, if you then chose to have this thing, TENS machine, epidural, whatever, what are the ways that you can minimise further complications? So for example, if you have an epidural, one of the things that you can do is to try to be positioned on your side, for example, so that you're not lying on your back, which again is something you do learn about in my antenatal workshop. If you use a TENS machine, you know, you need to not get in the water because you might give yourself an electric shock, like little things like that, you know, useful to know if you're going to do it. And the thing is, my view is that I don't care if you have a natural birth or not. I honestly don't give a shit, because for me, what's more important is that you have an awesome birth. And if that means that you have gas and air and epidural and all the things, as long as you come out of it going, do you know what, I've had an awesome birth, Eleanor was right, it can be awesome. That's all that's important to me. And if you are not informed about what you're choosing, then it's hard to maintain a really positive outlook on your birth. Because when you understand, and you completely understand what you're getting into, you're like, I'm having the epidural, I know what it means, I know the implications, I'm totally, totally down with this, then you don't feel like you've lost control, you don't feel like you've failed, you feel like you've got iron hard confidence that that is what you bloody want for you and your baby right in that moment. And the best way to do that is to read this book first, before you're in labour, and then you can, you know, get that confidence well before you're in the room. The other thing as well, I've all mentioned about the book as well, which I think is really important for me personally, and that was based on my reading of the Ina May Gaskin book, which I don't know if you've come across, but the first half of the book, it's a really thick book, it's like this. The first half is full of very amazing and inspiring natural birth stories of women walking in forests in their labour and doing loads of amazing things. And it's really inspiring, but also it's really inspiring to hear positive stories of people who've had gas and air and have had 3 days of labour and come out of it and gone, wow, that's fucking awesome, and not be traumatised. So in every chapter, there is at least one story, if not more, of people who I know personally in my birthsang network who have contributed their own birth stories of their interventions. And actually what tends to happen is that often they come in pairs or threes, and you don't often have just one thing, but you might find that there's lots of things. And so in fact, a lot of the stories are multifaceted with the things that people are choosing. And I think it's really great for people to be able to share those stories, so you can start to understand a little bit that in fact it can be a really positive thing, having a caesarean. Having an induction can be the most wonderful choice for you and your baby on that day, and that's fine, and it's all good, but you need to be informed when you do it. So, an argy-bargy, just so you know, might give you a tummy ache, but will make you feel really, really, really happy. Whereas an Ujima flip tastes of strawberries, but might give you a headache. So, which one would you like?
The first?
The argy-bargy.
I can't remember their names.
Yeah.
See?
But you're sure, because it might give you a tummy ache.
Yeah. Maybe that.
Doesn't make you feel happy though.
Can I have neither though? Is that?
Totally, yeah, that's totally fine. Good.
I'll go for tummy and headache then, I think.
You have a think about it,
I know.
and then
5 minutes.
I'll come back in 5 minutes and ask. Cool. So, basically, I want you to be able to understand Ujima flips and argy-bargies. And so by my book, I actually don't talk about them at all. That's something I made up this talk. So that's pretty much what I've got to say, more or less. I've got a few more things to add at the end, but what I want to do is to give you a little demonstration of a tens machine, and also there's an opportunity for Q&A if you have any. So, does anybody have any questions at this point? It can be about my book or about anything really, birth related.
I have a question. Well, it's not really a question. It's more of a. It's amazing how much when you are pregnant you can get steered into certain things with that whole pursuit of a positive birth. Because I worked at the hospital in Bath at the IUH both times that I was pregnant, and I was working really closely with the maternity team because I was doing some videos for them, and I kept saying, I'm really torn between Bath and Frome because I want to be close to where I could have an epidural, should I want one, because I don't know if I'm going to want one. And they all just said, oh, you'll be fine. And that was it. Just the bottom line was just, oh, you won't need it, you'll be fine. But that wasn't what I was asking. I was asking for the information. And I really wish this book had been around and I'd have mine too, because I found it really hard online to find the information, because I kept looking online trying to find what they wouldn't tell me, because they just kept telling me I'd be fine. And I couldn't find really good information because there's so many scare stories. The moment you start Googling anything, you're just overrun with scare stories. It's really hard to just find... And
it's either a scare story or it's like, but you must have a natural birth, and I find that in-between ground is hard
really hard to find. And I found the only book that I really, really connected with, which is really, really weird, was Pregnancy and Birth for Dummies, for Dads. Because for some reason, because it was written for men, they had tables with statistics and numbers and facts and things like, this is how likely it is in human. Yeah, and I was just like, oh thank God, that's the way my brain works, and I find it really hard to get past the fluffy stuff. So yeah, I really wish your book would be.
Tina, to add on to that comment there, I was thinking it's like that whole comment that everything's like, oh, we'll be okay, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
The main reason, my belief is, and I've been in the system for over 10 years, is that it takes time. It takes real time for a healthcare provider to say, so, an epidural, okay, here we go. So we've got the benefits, we've got and they just don't have the time.
Yeah.
They don't have the time to
So
sit
then you
down
look at other
and say,
sources, but then looking for other sources, it's then really hard
absolutely
often to find something, especially if you're kind of isolated and you didn't, because I didn't find you guys or these like kind of brilliant birth networks at the time.
Yeah.
I just got stuck in Google land, and then it's like, if you have an epidural, you will grow 5 heads, and then Satan will come.
and then the other option, the kind of aspect that we have is we have healthcare providers that have also been in the system for many, many years, and they work in a particular department or a particular hospital, and what they see day in, day out may not be the full scope of birth, which is kind of, you'd hope that one would be able to keep up with continual professional development, you hope one would be able to be really open, but actually when they're in that kind of, you want an epidural, this is what you can do. they're very short and sharp about the information they have to give, and they don't necessarily not have time. I have met a lot of birth professionals that are really open to giving time and open to giving explanation, but sometimes it's very much a kind of, oh, that's what you want, that's the path that you're on, I'm going to take you down that way, and then they may not give you all of the information.
And I think that you're right. I think it's really, really difficult because we don't have the luxury of time, and we are, have too many people having babies and not enough people to support them. And there is information out there, and the NHS do loads of leaflets, but quite often they're a bit scant.
Well, they're biased as well. It's biased. There's a lot of bias.
And there's a stance sometimes with it. And I think that the onus has become on the individual to make sure that they know what there is. And I think because of this age of information that we're in, a lot of people do look at that stuff and feel informed and take that to the table, which is good, but then you don't always know where that information has come from. Websites kind of repeat other websites, and you try to trace that source, and you find that it's self-referential. And I think it's a real challenge, and I think that's why I did feel there was definitely a need for a book like this, and I'd love it if the NHS gave a copy to everyone to put it out, of course.
I think it's
Unlikely, I think.
helpful. It'd be really helpful to have something that's kind of well researched, well resourced, to be able to give that whole.
Yeah.
This is where this.
And I think what's really
as well.
interesting, Tina, you mentioned about the dad's thing, and I think that often men are given information in quite a clear and well thought out way.
In
a mechanical way.
Statistics.
And
women
love statistics as well.
Yeah. And I don't want to be nurtured. Like, I can do that by myself. What I want to know is, in how many cases, if I choose this, what evidence have you got that in all of the cases in which this happened, this risk came to pass? Like, I know it's a bit nutty, but I loved the table. I mean, it's a really weird word to choose, but I loved the table that they gave about the decreasing rates of clot death at certain ages and the actual percentages. Because for me, that gave me something really concrete. I had postnatal anxiety. That gave me something concrete to base my thoughts and feelings on. Whereas what I had before was books saying, it does happen, it's extremely rare, don't worry, it won't happen to you.
And that's the thing, like one of the chapters in my book is about risk and understanding risk and the difference between absolute risk and relative risk. Oh, you're twice as likely for X to happen, but actually that means it's going to go from 0.0001% to 0.02%. And it's like, well, you have to look at the figures and you have to, you have to couch it not just in a language that suits your agenda, but actually go, these are the facts and figures, go forth and make your own choice. So, yeah.
I wish I read that chart as well, because I remember that further. To go over to guys and just do this.
Just like that.
Deep breathing.
For hours.
Put my cheek up to his mouth just because he was so quiet. Every night, and my second I was like, yeah, she's fine.
So, it's been a great discussion. Are there any questions or?
I'd like to say that I'm a midwife, as that's been said already. But I'd like to say that I think it's really great that there are other sources of information. I wholeheartedly would endorse researching from multiple different sources, really, and kind of getting a balanced view for things. But also, I'd say that if you're not receiving good enough information from your midwife, absolutely. If somebody asks me my statistics on that day, I might not be able to give a statistical analysis or something. But you should absolutely be able to say, but I will come back with that information next time. So I'd say continue to demand good information from your caregivers. But absolutely, Eleanor's completely right, labour is not the time to start researching that. and whilst we are obliged to say, to give you, it is a brief analysis of what the risk and benefit is at that moment. It's not the time to be starting to do some head work of, what the right choice is for you. So I agree. Do it first. Read some books, work it out.
It's understanding the midwife role. She's got a really important role during labour, during pregnancy, I would say, and then in labour. And when it's kind of in pregnancy, there's those questions that come up, aren't there? It's like, how will epidural affect me? And it's, in those appointments that you've got with your midwife, there's often not enough time to consider and to really give what women need and antenatal education. So I think it's important to be able to say, actually, we've got this session running here, we've got that session running
And
here.
people like Eleanor, in her first pregnancy, whilst you prepared for the labour you thought you were going to have.
Yeah.
You need to prepare for any eventuality of
Yes.
labour.
And the open
And that difference between fantasy and
information
reality, and you know, it's funny because you need to make a balance. You don't want to scaremonger people, and I don't want to do that at all. But frankly, if you're not informed, then there's going to be a big mismatch between what your fantasy of your labour is, even if it's exactly what you think you planned. It will still be really different. And in fact, I was so, I don't want to say blind, but I was so caught up in the fantasy, I didn't even pack a bag for hospital. So when we went to hospital, poor Kieran had to like throw some things in a bag, and I had my baby, and we were going home. Sorry, I'm going to shame you now. Not your fault. My fault for not packing the bag. Well, no, but it was November 17th, and actually it was 18th, it was the next day, and I didn't have any clothes to go home in, and so Kieran went home and came in and bought me a short-sleeved mini dress and a pair of pink Crocs.
Nailed it. I did get two speeding fines.
Tights or... Sorry to tell you, my darling. But, you know, the thing is, we hadn't even considered that we would go there, and it wasn't part of the... And it's just like, actually, it was just sort of ignorance, really. And now I've got a really extensive blog post on my website of all the things you could possibly imagine you might want to put in your hospital bag. You'll have 5 suitcases. So second time, I had 5 suitcases, and we were in and out in like 10 hours. So, yeah.
I just want to add the difference between the first and the second for me personally as a dad, was that the first one, the hypnobirthing, I won't be negative on hypnobirthing, but I thought it was brilliant. I could taste the lemon and everything. It would have worked for me, I think. But I had a very passive role in that class, and the experience itself, and it itself is a very passive thing, I think. It's a very inward-facing class and learning. While the active birth and the teaching, I had an active role within that, which was really good. It was great to be the birth partner. Suddenly I was introduced to the fact that I could actually do something. I wasn't as good as Eleanor at just collecting sort of stuff, but I tried my best. I at least went home and got electronic candles and music and all that kind of jazz.
You were great. You were a great birth partner.
But I just want to add what you said. It's recognising the birth partner's role as being really important.
And to kind of give a new responsibility, right? Instead of, it was a kind of, something was like, oh shit, so I have to actually be a guardian a little bit here. And like, I've got a role here, not just a catch.
Yeah. and just really being able to be part of that journey making, being part of the decision making, and understanding everything on the birthing preferences that lead up to it. It's really important, and also for the partner to be, if you've got a partner that's like literally shitting themselves and they're flapping and they're walking up and down the corridors, you can guarantee that hormone release is going to seep right into you. You're going to do everything you possibly can do to make them okay, when actually what you need to do is to be labouring. So it's that, I love that, just that kind of the antenatal education that really draws in the partner as well, make sure that they have a valid experience. They're brought in and they're included, because it's really important. Because the other thing is that birth partners come through being really traumatised too, and that's really overlooked. It's a passion of mine anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but it is...
That's for your book talk, Kaz.
These partners are really, really overlooked when it comes to birth and birth trauma and birth where perhaps it hadn't... trauma's in the eye of the beholder, and it can be different for different things, and it can be different for birth partners. Your partner might have had a completely positive birth experience, but actually for them, they might have been completely sidelined, tucked away, non-informed, and not had a clue what was going on. So for them, it might have been traumatic.
And that's why the book's great as well. And like, if Kieran had read that book, when I said to him with my piercing stare, you have to make this decision for me, I cannot sign this piece of paper, you would have gone, okay, I know what I'm signing away your life for, I know what this means, and then at least, there's informed consent for all parties concerned. Are there any other questions or things that people feel the need? No? Yeah?
Was there anything surprising to you when you were researching for your book that kind of jumped out at you, thinking that made you think, oh, I wish I'd known that, or oh, I didn't know that?
Yeah, actually, there were a couple of things, and my agenda with the book is that I don't care if you have a natural birth or not, and I'm not a natural birth Nazi. I honestly really want you to just do what you feel is right. But I was really shocked at the list of side effects of the epidural and the Pitocin, which is the artificial oxytocin that you are injected with or on a drip when you have an induction. And the list of side effects was so long, I didn't even include them all in the book because it was literally pages and pages and pages. And you know where I found out those side effects? I had to go all the way back to the drug company leaflet that is attached in the drug. That was the only place I could find a full list of side effects. I couldn't find them on any NHS websites or anything. They all say, oh, well, you might find this and you might have that and you might have that. But when I was like, no, I want to find the source here. I'm not going to put anything in my book and state anything unless I've seen it in either a accredited study or a official document. I was a bit like, I kind of wrote a whole load of them in the book and went, look guys, this is just a taster, there's a lot of shit. And of course it's not absolute that those side effects can happen to you, but it was, really shocking to me the extent to which there are potential effects of these drugs that we take in our bodies over a period of hours with really no knowledge at all of what they're going to do other than the benefit of having it, for example.
And how it's going to interact with you individually as well, which is, for most people, is an unknown.
Yeah, and also, I suppose on top of that is the thing that's starting to come out a little bit now, and it's under-researched, and it's kind of, people are starting to notice, but there are hypothesised links between certain problems and issues postnatally and use or overuse of those drugs in labour. So it's unknown actually a lot of the time what the real side effects are, because we're thinking there might be an implication for perhaps breastfeeding, or there might be an implication for immune system or gut health, or the microbiome, something that's becoming very new in our perception of a thing that's really important in our bodies that we haven't really known anything about. And I think that we're constantly learning new things about a lot of this stuff, and I think the epidural is fucking amazing when you need it, and in certain situations it's the best thing ever. For some people it means they can go on to have a natural birth, because you can have epidurals that you can turn down, and so you have a break and then get back to it and have a natural vaginal delivery. But I also, was really shocked at side effects. Sorry. But, it has its place, and it's about informed consent. And you look at it and go, well, driving a car has side effects. There's a lot of risks, and we make a choice every day to walk down the road and get in a plane and get in a car and do all the things, and we choose that. And so it's just a case of just read the bloody label. But it's hard to find the label. But it's in the references. And the references in my book are like a lot of pages.
I think that's it. You've got a source that has actually gone through all of those things, and it's a trusted source. And actually, a lot of research has gone into this.
Yeah.
That's helpful for parents to be able to dissect and to be able to have a trusted source of information, which is really hard these days.
Yeah, and I think a lot of leaflets and websites kind of generalise a lot of the things around it, and rightly so, because if the NHS kind of handed you like a great book like that, you'd be like, oh, you just read it. So they kind of hope that you're going to get a gist and then look into it further. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was actually really shocked by, I'm on a particular kind of medication, and I'm pregnant, I'm planning for the future. And so I checked with my specialist in Bath, and I said, well, I'm on this medication, and can you tell me anything about it? And he said, oh, well, with this, no, this one's fine, you can breastfeed, but this one, I don't think so. So I said, well, can you double check for me? I know there's like higher up, there's another team I've been treated by, can you check with them? He said, I can have a look, I can ask him. And I already knew that he was not going to do it. So I thought, okay, well, his book of reference, I didn't really know. I looked at it and I thought, well, what year is that made on? How up to date is that research going to be? So, but all of these questions I was only asking because I've been trained, I've been prepared to think like this. Otherwise, he would have been my specialist. He would have been the one who deals with cases like me. And then I was thinking, well, actually, probably how many women of my age does he see that are in this particular situation? Maybe not that many. And as more questions I started asking, I ended up calling, I think it's a breastfeeding drug helpline. And they gave me this brilliant research yes, it doesn't give you a clear no, but this is the research.
This is what we know, for sure.
Exactly, but for me it gave me an answer. I knew what I was doing, and I thought, wow, you know, this is what informed choice is. This is what actually knowing what you're choosing for and what you're going into, and it's such an empowering feeling. So I really highly, you know, commend what you're doing, and I'm just on board because I've been there, and I just know also what it's like to feel like you have been told and actually thinking, well, but I didn't know anything, and who are you to tell me? And that it can also, I think as individuals, it can also be because you want to be reassured, and you want to be hearing that yes, it's going to be all right. So I think part of us also wants to be able to place that trust in someone else who has trained for that job, because you know we want to be able to do that. And then, but again and again, I do find, well, actually, you know, I really just have to listen to myself and I have to trust myself, and I think that can also be really hard, and that's what you need the research for to,
I think it's hard because also when we go into decision making, we often have to unpeel a lot of thoughts and theories and ideas we have around birth, and they're normally based around the media and how we have come to perceive birth and how birth is kind of portrayed on the telly. And actually it's kind of, it can be 3 days. It can easily be a kind of, it can be an event that's nothing as we may have expected it to be. And if we're not seeking out good quality antenatal education, we're not seeking out support from friends that have had very different experiences of childbirth, it can be really hard to know what to expect. And that abstract, I think, the abstract idea for most modern women who do want an element of control, it's really challenging, really hard, because we all live in a way where we want to control things. And when we're in labour, it's that whole sense of we have to be able to almost switch off a little bit and be able to, for want of a better word, surrender to the sensation of labour, so we can allow it to progress a little bit more, because as we know, the new brain has a massive control over everything. And I think that it is hard if you haven't got the right information to start with, then it's almost like you're off on the wrong foot. Totally.
Exactly.
And if you haven't got providers that are giving you the kind of reassurance that you need, then it's almost like you're on the back burner straight away.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, we all have individual bodies, and we all have individual needs, and we may have medical stuff that is related to the pregnancy or not, and we may be on medication, or we may have other complications, or blah blah blah, and we all have a unique set of stuff that's going on for us. And you know, the only way you can make sure you're really truly making the right decisions is to make sure that you're really read up on your own condition and your own set of stuff going on, and you know, and add that into the mix of all the other stuff. There's a lot to learn in pregnancy. There's a lot to read. There's a lot to get through.
It kind of feels like it's unfair that there's so much to learn when it's only going to be 9 months of your entire life, and then you know it's all over, and then. You know,
it's true, but do you know what, Tina? The thing is, it's profound. Birth has a profound effect on you, whatever it is, whether it's a amazing, orgasmic, rainbow-led thing, forest, or whether it's a caesarean, or whatever it is, whether it's traumatic or whether it's amazing, it's going to have a profound effect that day. It's going to have a profound effect on you for the rest of your life. And so, yeah, it does feel like, oh my God, there's so much to cover. But actually, when you start to unpick it a little bit, you find that actually it's not as overwhelming as you first think. And a lot of the time, you find that you look at different sources, and then you start learning, and you go, okay, yeah, I've heard that somewhere else, and then things start tying together. And actually, you find, like, you know, you might read my book from cover to cover, I urge you, but you might find that actually you just dip into it because you think, oh, well, I know that I'm not going to have X for whatever reason. Like, for example, one of my mums in Reading knew that she wasn't going to have an epidural because she had a medical thing that meant that she couldn't have it. So she knew that for her, it was just completely out of the picture. So she just could discard that chapter completely. Siobhan, her story's in the book, actually. She had an induction, I think, in the end. But she had, it was either that or, you know, she was leaving out the epidural as a choice, so fine. But, you know, every person has their own needs, and for the birth and the information that they need to get for them, really. So
I suppose the way it's put together as well, like it's going to have an impact on like if anything else happened in a health way in your life in the future. It's just like, it's not what to think, it's like how to think about it.
And
So,
that's the
so
thing, and I
you
hate
have,
to
like,
use the
an
word
illness-
empowering because it's so overused, right, in birthing circles, but it is, it's really empowering to be really educated and really informed because, as you say, you feel like you're then, I'm in a position of power and knowledge, and that's really empowering for the rest of your life as well.
So
And
say you
anything
have
else,
an
you're like,
illness,
okay,
you have to apply the same thing.
exactly.
When they're telling you about
I see it's like an
what-
investment as well. Like we need to invest time in our birthing resources because, I mean, looking in this room, we've all probably had to make massive decisions in our lives. We may have had to buy houses. We may have had to, move across the country. All of these things, and you invest time, don't you?
Yeah.
In looking at what's the best mortgage and what's the rate I'm going to get. I literally know nothing about mortgages.
It's amazing how we pluck these analogies out of our head and we're like, where did that come
Do you
from?
know what I mean? It's like this. Oh my God, the best one is getting married, isn't it?
Yeah.
The best one is getting married. We pour so much time into what flowers, what flowers do we have, and who's going to look after the really annoying racist mother-in-law. How are we going to cope with this? And then it comes to birth, and why should it be any different?
Yeah.
We need to encourage women and their partners and their family to some extent to be able to invest by having really good antenatal education, invest in having a cohort of people that they can trust with. There is so much we can do, and there is so much available for every budget as well, I believe. And I think like spending a £10 on a book, in those ways, is just kind of making it. It's just getting it out there, isn't it? And being able to become really accessible.
Yeah. And often it's taking the first step, and then you find that leads you on a path, in your own path, in your own antenatal education, and you sort of go, oh, that really interests me, or oh, I've heard about home birth, what's that? And oh, water birth, and whatever it is, and you kind of then you learn things, and that learning then guides you into what your next bit of research is going to be. So it's kind of very much about that first step in the journey.
Then, isn't it? It's really enjoyable. I think some people go into the maternity system with kind of they will know what to do, and in a lot of ways midwives are awesome because they have got so much experience and so much expertise in that way. But actually I think it's in the same way that it's okay to take complete responsibility for your experience. I find the mothers and the partners that I work with, if they've taken responsibility of that experience, no matter what happens, they can come through it feeling less traumatised through kind of giving up their power and giving it to someone else and say, you choose, what do you think? It's
Because in my experience,
Yeah.
it's women who feel in control of their choices, and that relies on having informed consent, really. It relies on being informed and being knowledgeable. But when they feel in control of having made those choices, whether that comes from a place of knowledge or it comes from a place of instinct, they're making those choices for themselves, it negates the kind of traumatic side of the experience, but kind of allows them to feel that yes, I made the right choice for me and my baby on that day, and that was what was important, and that they come through it with that knowledge that those are the choices that they made, and what came out of it was what needed to happen.
Yeah, I was just saying before to kind of hearing the middle ground, because you hear a lot of, oh, we just had caesarean, or oh, you had this terrible birth story, and even though all of our friends have got kids, you don't hear about the okay births. The middle ground. It's boring. You're getting pregnant and they're the ones you want, because you think, oh, okay, I found myself saying to my mum today, over lunch, apart from caesarean and epidural, what is there? And you just think, well, I'm not, in my 20s or anything, and I think you just go through life, you think, how have I got to my late 30s and I know nothing? And I'm hoping, I'm a teacher, I'm hoping it kind of filters in the long run somewhere in kind of our birth, our education, sex education, consent, and it builds upon it so that we don't get, and I like learning, and I am reading lots of books, so I thoroughly look forward to reading yours and feeling like I can go into it and knowing, because at the moment I literally don't know, and I've got lots of close friends, but some people just don't want to talk about it, and so I'm looking forward to finding that middle ground.
And I mean, I had an awesome birth, and it was awesome, but it was painful. It was full on, and I swore a lot, and I couldn't have done it without gas and air and my TENS machine, and they were complete lifesavers, and I was fully prepared with my list of what the next thing I was going to have to need to get to, and actually it turned out that it was so quick that I didn't need to go there, so it was great. But it was very normal. It was very, and it was in the hospital. It wasn't at home, and I wasn't allowed to be at home. And you know, so there were a lot of things that were like a compromise for me. But well,
You're not allowed to allow anyone. by the
it's
way.
complicated, and you know, and whatever. It's what it is. And but I had an amazing experience, and that's part of my journey, and that's part of my journey of learning, and that's part of why I'm standing here before you today, is because that's part of what happened with me, and I see some of the things that were amazing about it, and some of the things that could have been even more, you know, could have been better handled or whatever. And that was a long time ago I had my babies, and it's amazing what's changed between 2012 when I had my awesome birthday baby to now, and in the way that I teach in my workshops has changed because some of the guidelines have changed about things like optimal cord clamping and stuff like that, and it's like it is evolving the whole time. So
Some of it's evolving.
some of it's evolving, some of it's taking steps back, some steps forward, some steps back, you know.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it kind of ebbs and flows. So.
Where did you get birth sign from as a
Oh,
name?
I can't tell you that. Can I really? Yeah, but then you'll all think less of me. Because it's mysterious and exciting. I tell you what, come to my workshop and I'll tell you there. So, or get me really drunk and then I'll tell you.
After parties.
Where's open?
I did tell at my party last week, it was my birthday last week. But no, I'm afraid I'm not going to answer that. But let me say that Zang is a word that features in lots of stuff that we do as a family. So yeah, it's an important word for us. So that's all I can
Definitely
say.
taking you out for a drink.
Great. Are there any more questions before we?
Yeah, I was just wondering, did you read the book by Adam Kay, I Think This Is Going to Hurt?
No, I haven't read that actually.
Yeah, I wonder what other people thought of that. I just read it and I thought, wow, it gives a great insight into what a labour ward is actually like.
Okay.
And what,
I loved it.
I'd love to read it, so lend it to me.
I think it was. I think
might
it
have
was
read it
so.
and it's accurate.
Yeah, it's accurate. It's brutally honest as well,
Yeah.
and I just feel really amazed that he found the courage to write it.
gosh, yeah.
That was. I think that was like it was almost like a whistleblowing
Yeah.
kind of book. It was like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
shit, this is the reality that human doctors faces, and I would, I'd recommend it always.
And there are other great books. Obviously, mine I recommend first. Buy that first. Then another one that I really highly recommend is Expecting Better by Emily Oster. And I read that in my pregnancy and was very inspired by her. And again, she's I think an economist, and she got pregnant in her, I think, late 30s, possibly early 40s, and was classed as geriatric, which is outrageous, don't get me started. But anyway, she wrote this amazing book where she basically did that thing of going and finding the source of all statistics. But it's a slightly random selection of stuff, and it was about her own journey. But for example, it was on, she looked at like the statistics around risk of miscarriages. She looked at statistics about the foods that you should eat or not eat, and things like that. And she kind of being a geriatric mother and what that really meant.
I just want to say she's like in her 40s, yeah, just to be really
Yeah,
clear.
right.
It was right clear to me,
Right.
you didn't know what Joe
Oh right, yeah. When you're like, I don't know what's the
38.
age.
Yeah, 38.
Yeah, well, it depends. Like,
I'm not saying that Gerald is
Well, no,
responsible.
no. When I started my training way back in 2001, 30 onwards would be considered geriatric.
I think it's not done now.
Yes, so now our guidelines have changed, I think, to reflect the fact that if we were so interventionist with everyone who's over 30, then we wouldn't have space or money or anything.
And also, Emily Oster, I believe, is American, so again, I think there's additional caution and different stuff, measurements going on there. But that's a book I highly recommend. She's updated it as well. It's about 8 or 9 years old, and she's done a second edition, so that's a really good one. I highly recommend that as well, after you've bought mine. So, are there any more questions for me? Great discussion. So, what I really like is, go on, Kaz, you can.
No.
Oh, you just look like you're about to say, me. So, what I want to do is I want to just demonstrate a tens machine. Who's heard of a tens machine? Hand up. Okay. Did you know that you can use one in labour? Okay, good. I think they're absolutely fucking brilliant. I got through 3 days of labour at home, hardcore labour at home, with just a tens machine. How on earth did I manage it? I do not know. And in my second labour as well, I used one, and it's really interesting, tens machines, because when you look at research, which obviously I have done, there's no evidence to say it's beneficial or detrimental to your perception of pain in labour. There's no studies that actually put one foot in each camp.
It would be if it was a drug, but anyway.
Well, it's really interesting. It's a really, really interesting area. And there are some people who believe it is a massive marketing ploy from TENS machines companies, which is really interesting. However, what does seem to be agreed on is that it's not harmful at all for you or your baby. So there are no side effects. That is what the research and all the studies are showing. And anecdotally, there's also a mixture of reactions. So some people think it's the most amazing thing you could have. I'm one of them. And there are other people who think it was just pointless and rubbish. Other people who thought it was really annoying and they hated it. And so there's no consensus. But my view is, if it's completely safe for you and your baby, it has no side effects. If you don't like it, you can take it off, and that's the end of it. Why would you not try, frankly? It's, you know, very much personal. And in my research, it was highly unscientific among my birth sound community about TENS machines, was that it became apparent to me that the people who didn't like it weren't really using it properly. And there's a way to use a TENS machine. Now, the theory behind a TENS machine is one of these little things. This is a particular one that's designed for labour. There are ones that you can have just for pain relief. And it's, you put these pads on your skin, and I've got one set of pads on here, but the birth TENS machine has 2 sets of pads. And you put them on, one here and here, and one here and here, on your skin, on your bare skin. And you turn it on and it emits a very low electric pulse into your body. And the ones for labour work in 2 ways. So what happens is you put the TENS machine on in early labour, and it gives a continual low burst of electronic pulse. And this low frequency, the theory goes, is that it helps to stimulate the body's natural endorphins by kind of making you feel like you've got a tiny little bit of pain. It's not painful, but it kind of stimulates the endorphins, because the endorphins in your body only kick in when you're experiencing pain, and labour starts quite gently, and so often you find that what it's trying to do is it's trying to kick in the endorphins before they would naturally do so, and stimulate the body's natural pain response. And then during the contraction, you press a button, and the frequency is higher, and it's a bigger pulse. And this pulse is designed to interrupt the flow of signals from this part of your body that come into your spine and go up through your spinal cord. That's where your nerve centres go, and into your brain. So the idea is it's interrupting the pain signals so they don't ever get to your brain. That's the theory. Does it work? Worked for me. I thought it was brilliant. But what I would say is you need to put it on pretty much at the start of when you feel like your labour is starting. And if you leave it till like a long way down the line and your contractions are quite intensive and are taking all of your attention, by that point you can put it on and it's kind of too late really to feel the benefits. So you need to put it on and leave it on throughout your labour if you want to get the benefits. And it has an adjustable current, so you can make it start quite gentle, and as your contractions intensify, you can intensify the sensation. So I would like a non-pregnant volunteer who can come up, and I'm going to put it on, and you can have a little, you can tell us a little bit about how it feels. So I like the men folk to do this because they love it really, and but it's completely optional, and I have previously agreed with my husband that he will allow me to use him if nobody wants to. But would anybody like to come and be a demonstrator? Oh, come on. Yeah, come on. So you did tell me your name, I totally forgot it. Liam.
Yeah.
I'm Eleanor Hayes.
Hello.
I'm recording, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So, have you ever used a TENS machine?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so in an ideal world, we would put this on your back,
Okay.
but obviously you might not want to show your flesh.
Okay.
You could also put it on your arm.
Okay.
These pads are reusable, so they're gel and they're sticky, so they shouldn't leave a residue, but they might pull the hairs a little bit when you... Up to you. What is your fad? Where do you want to go?
Either one. That's good. Yeah.
You know what? You want to take your clothes off and do your back?
Just do it.
Oh, no. Damn it. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do the other side, so it's a bit less, not that you're hairy, but... So, these are completely clean and new pads and they haven't been used on anybody. And when you use a TENS machine, these pads can be reused about 30 times. It's usually recommended that you just use it on yourself rather than switch it around. And it's also important to note that while it has been shown to be safe in labour, it is not recommended to use when you're pregnant before labour, just in case, because they don't do tests on pregnant women because of ethics. So it's usually recommended that you wouldn't try this on your belly or on your back, although you could, as a pregnant woman, try it on your arm or your leg, just to get used to it, or you could try it on your partner. It doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm just going to put this down. Now I did get it out and try it out before I came, because I was like, oh, do you know what? I don't actually use it.
Someone should do a study though, because it'd be really good.
Well, there are studies.
Like backache and stuff.
Yeah.
It would be good.
Yeah. There are studies, but
when there's nothing
not
really in the
with
contraindications box, I'd say think about those options.
Yeah. And of course, people who don't know that you're not supposed to do it anyway. So it's like clary sage oil. I knew someone said, "Oh, I use clary sage oil all the way through my pregnancy," and you're supposed to not use it. Whatever. Talk to me about clary sage another day. I've got a blog post on my website that gets 3,000 hits a week on how to use clary sage oil. So apparently I'm an expert. Who knew? Okay. So it's quite easy to use a TENS machine, and so what we do is we start by putting the channels up a little bit. And this is the continual one, and it's like pulses like that. So can you feel it?
Yeah.
So how's that feeling for you?
Just like it's like a bubbling kind of feeling. Yeah, it feels
I'm just going to raise it up one level. It goes to like 1 to 10 or something. So it's on 2. I'm just going to raise it up to 3 and just see how's that.
Yeah, it's kind of. You can really feel that now.
Yeah, and it's not unpleasant.
No.
It's just
It's kind of weird. It's just good.
yeah. It's like a slightly weird tingly feeling.
Yeah.
So then that's like your in between contraction. Have you had a child already? Have you been through it?
Self-first one.
Okay, so I was going to ask you to imagine you were having a contraction and like act it out, but I don't know, it might be damaging. You'll be able to tell what television he's watched by the way that he acts.
Is it Friends or EastEnders?
Yeah, right. Don't get the bird work started on TV and film, but that's another day. So what we do is we have it on the whole time, and then during the contraction you press this button. And actually this is quite a nice thing for partners to do when they're heavy in labour, because you get to know the pattern of what's going on, and so they'll start pressing the boost button, and that's kind of a useful thing to do, and then you can focus on your own labouring. So then we press the boost, and you can set like what the frequency is. Do you know what? I'm going to give that to you, and you press the button, and if you want to turn it off again, then you just unpress. No, that's the boost button.
Okay.
Oh, it's on boost, sorry. You press it once and it comes on, and then you press it once and it goes off. So it's on boost at the moment.
Okay.
So how would you say that feels?
It feels quite odd, I'd say.
It's more intensive.
Yeah.
And it's now not bursting, is it? It's a
It's like a continual
thing. And what you can do is you can press the plus button and make it go up a notch and see how. It's not like that experiment, where they did that, where you gave people electric shock. It's not like that. It's really not. It's really not. Have you ever used a TENS machine?
Yeah, I think it is a bit. I'm going to be controversial. I think it's if you have it at like way too high at the beginning.
Oh yeah, at the beginning. No, you have to have it quite gentle.
Yeah.
So just put it up one notch. Honestly, it's not going to hurt you. Really,
This one?
Yeah, that one. And you see, each one will go each pad. So that's one side, and then that's the other side. So you do. Okay, so then,
Just don't put money
so
first.
turn it off now. That one, just turn it back to the normal level.
Yeah.
And so how does that feel going from the intensive burst back to the... It makes the normal one feel quite sort of
Yeah.
nappy.
It's kind of weird looking on my arm because I got that.
I'm being very game, thank you. Yeah. So, you know, it's quite easy to use.
Yeah.
And it does feel a bit strange when you first do it, but then when your contractions start becoming quite intensive, what happens is that you then...
Is that right?
Thank you very much.
And that's as bad as birth ever feels.
If only. Oh, no, I'm sure. Okay. So yeah, when your contractions start to feel more intensive, what happens is the sensations of the electric currents start to do their job and start to disrupt what's going on. And it's very personal. And you do have to start off with it gentle, and then as your labour increases, you find that you do want to turn it up. And you know, it's something that's really, really easy to control. Although you cannot get in water with a TENS machine because it will give you an electric shock and you will destroy the machine. So that's one of the implications of having a TENS machine.
Would it still be beneficial if you used it up until the point, I don't know how water birthing works, but if you used it until you got...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Because you see, the point of the water birth is two things. One is that it's really, really a pain reliever, and a lot of people find it really, really helps them to relieve the sensations, and they have quite a different, much more pleasant experience. Now I have to say this without any knowledge because I never got in my birthing pool. I just sat and looked at it for 3 days.
No, you did get into it.
I did get into it, actually, yeah, you're right, and I hated it. I hated it so much. I hated floating, but that's another story that we were in my workshop. But yeah, so you can, you can get the pain relief from that, but also the water stimulates the natural hormones of labour as well when you first get in it. So there's kind of two things. But generally speaking, when women get into water, they report that everything feels much more manageable. So,
Water felt like the biggest pain relief thing. And I laughed when I saw it on a list of pain relief options, because I was like, water pain relief, ridiculous. It might make things nicer, but but honestly, wow, the difference.
Yeah. And in fact, you don't even have to get in a pool.
Full of drugs.
It can just be a shower. And I had a friend who, again, like me, had quite a long and prolonged labour, and she lay in the bath, and her husband poured jugs of water over her belly for like hours and hours and hours, and she just said it was amazing. Like, who knew? So there's a lot of calming and healing, soothing properties of water. So, but absolutely, you could use it right up to getting into the water, and then if you didn't want to be in the water and you wanted to come out, you could put it back on. I don't know how that would work in terms of endorphin level if you then put it on again later, because you'd have had the break from it. So you might find that it didn't really work so brilliantly. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, cool.
So I hire TENS machines, just so you know. Who thought? So I hire them for £20 because I think they're amazing. So if you ever want one, get in touch.
How did I not know that?
How do you not know that? I've got three. And they're on constant cycles. Yeah, they're really great. And it's very personal, and some people like it, some people don't. But overall, I found that why would you not have something in your bag that might help? Really, so I've said that already. Cool. So I think I'm just going to sort of start to wrap up. Given everything I said, let's just cast our mind back to the beginning. And I asked you about that amazing universe with the best possible version of your birth in. Have you got any more ideas about what kind of word you might like to describe that birth that's in the best possible version of your birth? Come on, absolute silence. Really? Nothing? Yeah? No, there's no right or wrong. I'm just prompting you to imagine that there's a universe and a possibility that there's a really, really amazing birth.
Control.
Yeah. And that we can think of it in a positive way, and just because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's quite nice to have a helpful fantasy rather than one filled with fear and loathing and feeling it's all going to be a negative experience. So that's what I'm trying to make you do, is to think of a universe in which there is an orgasm, there is awesomeness, and whatever happens, that you come out of it feeling really, really positive, because that's really what I hope for all of you.
Can I just talk a little bit about the control thing? Because it's really a really big thing for me, and it's a really big thing for the mums that I work with as well, because control is, like I talked about before, it's a massive issue sometimes when it comes to giving birth. And where I see a book like yours, and where I see like people coming to courses and doing lots of ancestral education, the kind of, what you're looking for, that kind of, that almost that suggestion, that idea of having a kind of phrase, for me it's about controlling the controllables. And it's about being able to be educated and informed about everything that might happen to you in labour. So really, when the actual time comes, you can almost let go of that control, be open to what might happen and whatever's going to come your way, knowing that you have stacked the odds in your favour, I think, especially with TENS and water and all the things available, knowing all of the options. When you have done all of that research, when you have done all of that kind of homework, then you can almost relax into labour.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And you can
absolutely.
almost like let go of all that stuff, because you've done all that shit.
And what I say to people when they come to my workshops, you don't need to remember this stuff. You don't need to remember all the facts and figures. You just need to understand it. And then when you're in the room, you're like, I know that there's something I should, I don't know why, I can't remember exactly the details, but I know that if I do this, it's going to be helpful for me, and if I do this, it's not, or whatever. And you've kind of done that research, and it just, as you say, it makes you just feel so much calmer, because you know you've done that work.
But it's partners as well, especially. I really think if they can come and attend a session and they take on that information, I describe it as a filing cabinet. It goes in, and it might not be until that moment you think, I haven't thought about epidural since that class with Kaz, and that was about 3 months ago. But actually I know, I can remember to get her on the side and to, all those little things. It's kind of, you take them and you think of it, and people who come to sessions and read your book want to know that information, and it's that trust, isn't it? It's that trust, it's going to go in, it's going to stay somewhere, and in that moment it will be there when you need it. But for labour, I definitely think it's about doing all the homework, doing the research, going to the sessions, and then almost trying to enjoy it, and allowing that control to recede in some ways.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Letting go.
Oh, it's, I don't know.
But that word trust, I think, comes as part of it. And it's trusting yourself, knowing you've done that homework.
Yeah, I think the partner never lets go. He's the guardian, he's the person that's going to be hopefully sort of advocating and setting up and doing that stuff. He's not really going to let go. But a space that's provided for the mum, where she can truly feel safe. I think that was the word for me. It was safe. And it's not about a safe baby, healthy baby. It's not about that. It's about a mum feeling safe to be able to release. That for me was more important than other words that were sort of coming. It was that kind of feeling of safety. And having done all the research, and then in that moment, really, really letting go and feeling safe.
So what I want you to do, those of you in the room who are pregnant, or with someone who's pregnant, I want you to just think about what you are going to commit to do right now, here, to educate yourself and inform yourself. Hopefully it's buying my book. But what else? What else are you going to do? Because you're the only person who can do that, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you do everything you can to make sure you have as awesome a birth as possible. So you don't have to tell me, although if you want to tell me, that's totally fine. And I will be here at the end if you want to come and chat privately with me. But I just want you to think about all the ways that you might like to do that. Finally, there are ways I can help you in that process, and they are my book.
Have you written the book?
I think I've plugged it enough. But also, I am an antenatal teacher, and I am offering some free antenatal classes in the coming weeks and months on Monday the 23rd of May in the evening, Saturday the 29th of June in the morning, and Tuesday the 9th of July in the evening. And if you would like to come, there'll be about an hour, maybe 90 minutes, because we always go on long and talk too much. There's a little sign-up sheet at the back, and if you could just write what date you wanted to come. If you don't want to come to a free class but you'd like to go onto my mailing list, then you can put your name on there as well. So please write legibly. And also I have a one-day workshop. So Kaz, you might have guessed, is an NCT teacher, but I do workshops that are based specifically on labour, and I teach everything from the moment your labour starts to an hour or two after you've had your baby, and everything in between and nothing else. So it's very, very specific, and I follow those 3 pillars that I talked about: education, understanding and practice. And they're workshops, they're interactive. We try out postures and we talk about our mindset and we do breathing, and there's lots of interaction. It's not just me kind of standing at the front going blah, blah, blah. There's a little bit of that. So I do like sound my own voice. And the next one coming up is on Saturday the 1st of June, and that's at the Cheese and Grain. So it's normally £199 per couple, but for the next 24 hours it is £149. So if you want to come to that and sign up, it's on my website, or email me and I'll let you have the link. So if you wanted to come, get a discount. And also I teach yoga, so I do pregnancy yoga. I know some of you come already. And I have a free gift card offer, so if you wanted to come and try a class for free, you can do that. And again, all the information is on my website, which you can probably guess is birdsang.co.uk. And also, believe it or not, I have actually just about to publish my 2nd book, and I've got to put I've got the flyer at the back, not the front. It's called Natural Ways to Induce Labour. Your guide to myths and facts about inducing labour without drugs. So in a way, it's a very opposite kind of book. It's not like saying, here's all the drugs, it's saying, here's all the things that we think we can do, because some of them are actually quite harmful, and some of them are really, really excellent. So that's coming out in a couple of weeks, so there's a flyer for that in the back. Exciting, and yeah, so thank you so much for coming. There's chocolates, because every Birdsang workshop or class always has some form of chocolate, and there is a bar that is vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, everything free except sugar and chocolate. So if any of you need something, but I don't do healthy, so if you need healthy food, then you're in the wrong place. But about that apple you promised? Yeah. Has ate it. So thank you very much for coming. Feel free to come and chat, buy the books. You can get a copy from Tina at the back, and she takes card payments. And